there.
How are you treated?
Well, it's been mixed. I kind of keep to myself, so, you know, it hasn't been all bad.
How has your family coped with all this? I mean, this is probably considered quite a strange lifestyle.
Well, you know, around home, this is not the constant topic of conversation. We generally just carry on as normal a life as possible and just try to get on with our lives and, you know, sort of have a normal family life.
Mm-hmm. So do your children ever ask you about it, or is it just kind of like,
well, you know, I don't,
about?
you know, bring it up and talk to them about it all the time, but at the same time, it's not taboo. If they want to know something, you know, I tell them about it.
How do you feel about, you know, back in '75 when this all unfolded, UFO TV program was not a norm, and in the last, what, 2 or 3 years, we've seen a real proliferation of interest in this within the mass media. What's your take on that? What do you think's going on that's suddenly generating this interest? And how's that impacting your family?
Well, I think that probably one thing is that, you know, like my case in particular, and I can speak mostly about that because that's, you know, my way of coping with all this was kind of shy away from the subject in general and kind of even my own case I didn't really confront and deal with. It took me a long time to sort of, you know, start looking more deeply into that. But I think that there was a lot of disinformation out about my case, and as time went on, this stuff didn't hold up. You know, more information came along, and since the normal channels of communication that society receives, you know, weren't transmitting these facts, it's been sort of a trickle down or sort of a gradual osmosis, if you will, you know, sort of people, it's gathered momentum of its own, you know, the truth coming out and a lot more reports, people sort of daring to come forward.
You have children?
Yeah, I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Obviously, they have to interact with kids in school. With all the UFO information that's coming out in the media now, do kids come to your children now and asking maybe more questions about what happened to their dad?
Well, you know, they get questions now and then, but, you know, they don't encourage it, and it's not really that common.
Okay.
It's kind of mixed. Once in a while there'll be a little teasing, but on the overall, I think since the movie came, it's kind of improved things. Okay. Kids think, hey, that's cool. You know.
Okay.
You know, you said that it had taken you, and I really want to take my hat off to Jim and Coral for kind of taking you in and getting some of the tests that you truly needed to have done. In retrospect, if you would have had somebody, say it didn't have the notoriety as your case did, somebody, you were out there by yourself, chopping wood, it zapped you, it carried you away, your family didn't know where you were, all of a sudden you're in Hebert, you make this phone call, and you're by yourself now, nobody else saw this happen. Do you feel that if there was something in place, like what you're talking about, the hotline that Cecilia's working on and all of you guys at the Crisis Hotline Center, if you had a place that you could have called up and just talked to somebody about it without being ridiculed, would that have helped you?
Yeah, I think that, you know, there could have been a lot of things, you know, there could have, you know, all the sorts of things you're talking about, teams of specialists, people trained to look at various things, and a case like this where there was physical evidence to make the most of that. I think a lot of possibilities were overlooked. I don't think the medical tests, they didn't know enough about what to look for. And so, you know, I think that there may have been a lot of valuable evidence that just got overlooked because there wasn't anything in place to make the most of it.
I think, too, do you think that maybe, you know, just for your peace of mind and emotionally, if you had had somebody that, you know, you could have talked to openly and not felt, you know, invalidated, that you went through, you had a real experience, this was something real, and you had every right to be upset. Do you think that might have made you feel a little bit better about the whole thing, or helped you to open up a little sooner?
Yeah. maybe. I'm not, you know, I'm a sort of a self-reliant type, you know, and there was at the time that this happened, there wasn't any sort of support group or any sort of, no one to turn to. And so I went this whole thing alone, this whole process of learning to cope with this and to deal with it of necessity. But, you know, I can't really say for certain that I would have done it any differently had things been available, because, you know, it's just kind of my way.
Yeah.
I've got, I want to, do you mind taking a question if we have one in the audience?
Sure.
Here? Is there anybody, just start from right over here. If you have a question, just sound out, please. Any questions? Anybody? No questions at all?
No, I got one.
Okay.
Yeah, what about when you were dropped right on the highway? Did you see the craft going away from you then?
Let me repeat
An
that.
accurate statement?
He wanted to know if your viewing audience couldn't hear that, if that you saw a craft after they dropped you, you were by the mailbox, I mean the phone booth, I guess. Did you see the craft?
No, I wasn't near the phone booth. I found myself laying on the road. I was outside of town, actually, and there was a light above me. I looked up to see where the light was coming from, and it went off before I, you know, got my eyes pointed at it. But then I saw this craft hovering there just for an instant before it shot straight up into the sky.
How about smell? Was there an aroma that you remember, like ammonia or sulfur, something that was different?
Well, not an identifiable odor. There was a stale, sort of a musky, humid sort of an odor. Other than that.
You see anybody else out there?
Any other questions?
I do.
Great, say it loud.
Okay, I will, Ted. Thank you. Travis, when we were in Payson, and we were walking around, we were about 12 or so, one of the things you said to me is, as we were walking, you said, if I saw a UFO, I would run up to it.
Is that your question? You got to be quick.
Yeah, that's the question.
Okay.
What's your name? I don't know who you are.
We used to spend the night with each other, Travis.
And the name is?
Cox.
What?
Cox. Bill Cox.
Bill Cox.
Bill Cox.
Yeah, we went to Payson Elementary, junior high.
The question was that when you were younger, that you had made the statement that if you saw a UFO, you would try to run up and see it at close range. And I think I heard that in the movie.
I may have said something like that, but I don't recall that.
Okay.
You know, with that beam coming down, Kenny was the only one that saw it, wasn't he? Do you
No, he
remember?
wasn't the only one. No, there was several of them that saw it.
And did you feel afterwards, because you had to know that, it seems like you were knocked off and then Mike and everybody took off, but you didn't realize that they had taken off.
No, I was unconscious.
But when they came back and they told you that they took off, were you kind of perturbed?
Later on, my family kind of took issue with that. They felt like that the crew members hadn't been heroic enough, but you know, I don't really see that. I think that they reacted quite rationally. They were not in a position to do anything. They were pretty well defenseless.
Yeah, you can't get your chainsaw out and go after it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I was
That'll be
driving,
the sequel movie.
The
Ted.
sequel, yes.
yeah.
Fire in the Sky, the
with
sequel.